They cornered me in my own kitchen, bodies angled like prison gates, and when Tiffany smiled that sugar-glazed smile, she said, "Old lottery winners have accidents all the time, very easy targets," while Kevin nodded like a loyal puppy who'd finally learned his command. In that heartbeat between coffee steam and terror, I felt my blood rise and, strangely, settle. The way a lake goes flat before a storm. If you are watching this, breathe with me. I'm going to show you how a 72-year-old widow turned a threat into a reckoning. 6 months earlier, I was still Dorothy Williams, the polite shadow that moved quietly through a house in Colorado Springs, the woman who rinsed mugs at 6 a.m., folded laundry at 3 p.m., and pretended not to hear the strain in every room. I had moved in 2 years after Harold died, believing, as widows are trained to believe, that helping family while they helped me would soften the ache. Kevin, my only son, had that boyish grin that once convinced me he'd inherited his father's integrity. He managed a struggling car dealership and wore his stress like cologne. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, worked pharmaceutical sales with the polished desperation of someone who keeps up appearances on a ledger of debt. Her voice always sounded like a smile learning to lie. Their children, Tyler, 16, Ernest and good, and Emma, 13. Soft-eyed and fiercely observant were the only proof love still lived in the hallways. The first crack came one night around 12 a.m. when I patted down for water and heard them talking through their bedroom door, voices low but crisp, like knives wrapped in tissue. "We can't keep carrying her," Tiffany whispered, and the phrase carried a chill that slid along the baseboards. Kevin answered, "She's my mother, Tiff." But then he added words that moved through me like a draft. "She's a financial burden," Tiffany said. "Cedar Grove has payment plans. We get power of attorney. Say she's declining. Make the decision for her own good." I stood in the hallway with my hand on the wall, the world tilting slightly, as if the house had learned a new angle. In that moment, I understood I wasn't family in the way I believed. I was inventory. After that, I began to notice everything I had trained myself to miss, how Tiffany priced me down to individual meals, how Kevin avoided being alone with me as if kindness might be an overdraft. I found bank statements on Kevin's desk one afternoon at 2 p.m., a glimpse I hadn't intended and couldn't unsee credit card balances stacked like sandbags, a mortgage 3 months past due, vehicles bought for image that now dragged them under. Later, Tiffany mentioned opportunities as if exile could be marketed, and Kevin avoided the word nursing home by calling it a community, the way storms are called weather events. Defiance can be small. Sometimes it's a $5 lottery ticket bought at 10:15 a.m. with the exactness of a dare. When those numbers hit, weeks later, I sat in a convenience store parking lot and felt not joy but strategy rise in me like heat, the knowledge that power, real power, had landed in my lap. Most people would have fled. I wanted something else, truth, visible and undeniable. I called Daniel Rodriguez, an investigative journalist I'd seen on a segment about elder abuse, and when we met at a downtown coffee shop at 11:30 a.m., he listened in a still, precise way that told me he believed patterns more than tears. "What you're describing is textbook," he said, and when he asked if I could document it, I surprised myself by smiling. Ugly is exactly what I'm hoping for. We installed the equipment while the house was empty at 2 p.m., cameras nested in decorative objects, audio devices tuned to catch the soft thud of late-night planning. Daniel said, "Everything records to encrypted drives," and I ran my finger along the rim of a ceramic bowl that would soon become a witness. That evening, when Kevin approached me with a serious face and Tiffany trailed in with printed brochures, I folded my hands and said, "What about them? Honey, and watched their sales pitch glide toward my exile in a voice that sounded like care. I nodded thoughtfully, said I needed time, and later lay in the dark, listening to them whisper about rental income, about decision-making for my own good, and felt a calm I hadn't known in years settle across my chest. The net was cast. All we needed now was their truest selves to swim toward the shine. I did not yet tell them what I had won. I wanted them to show me who they were when they thought I was small. And when the first test came, it arrived not with sirens, but with a cheerful phone call at 4:10 p.m., the kind of promise that makes greed lean forward and call itself concern. Margaret's voice was bright enough to glitter through the receiver at 4:10 p.m., and because Tyler answered, it traveled beautifully. "Is Mrs. Dorothy Williams there?" She chimed in a tone so official even the dog sat up. "Grandma, phone for you." Tyler shouted, half hope, half breathless. I took my time crossing the hall, letting the silence stretch just enough for Kevin and Tiffany to tune their ears. "This is Janet from Publishers Clearinghouse," Margaret announced with theatrical courtesy, and I made my own voice wobble like a porch swing. "Oh dear, I'm not sure I entered anything," I murmured. She delivered the script we'd rehearsed. "Our records show your name for a prize of $25,000, plus $1,000 a week for life." I added a tremor. That seems too good to be true. By the time I hung up, the air smelled like adrenaline and sugar. Tyler nearly vibrated. "Grandma, you might be rich," just as both parents came home, faces lit by the sudden possibility that I was useful again. Their transformation was nauseating and immediate. "Mom, that's incredible news," Kevin beamed, smile snapping into place like a sales floor display. "What exactly did they say?" Tiffany perched on a stool. "Sympathy, eye-lined and ready." I played unsure. "Something about $25,000 and then $1,000 each week. But it must be a scam." Tiffany's voice softened as if she were wrapping me in a throw blanket. "Publishers Clearinghouse is legitimate. We should look into this carefully." In the crack between her words, I heard the gears grind. Look into this meant figure out how to control it. I said, "If any of it is true, I should pay you back for everything you've spent on me," and their eyes flickered like someone turned the lights up a notch. Kevin cleared his throat nobly. "Family helps family. You don't owe us," while Tiffany added the leash. "But large sums can be overwhelming. We could help you manage it just for safety." That night, the walls carried their whispers like river sound. "She's being naive." Tiffany pressed, voice tight. "Elderly people are targets. We need guidance in place, joint account, maybe power of attorney." Kevin hesitated, a thin thread of conscience stretching and threatening to snap. "We shouldn't push too hard." Tiffany's exhale was a blade. "This is over $500,000 over 10 years. Do you think she can manage that responsibly?" The words hit like a door slamming. I lay awake at 11:50 p.m., the hidden mics drinking in every syllable, and felt something old and iron inside me lock into place. Let them keep talking. Let them build their case against my competence while I build one against their hearts. By morning, they had graduated from concern to choreography. In the kitchen at 8:05 a.m., Kevin led Mom. "We think you should let us help manage the money. Nothing drastic. A joint account so we can monitor for suspicious activity." I tilted my head. Suspicious like what he recited a list unusual withdrawals, con artists, people who befriend me for gain, unaware he was naming himself. "But it's my money," I said, letting the innocence sting a little. "Of course," he replied quickly. Tiffany slid in. "Just simple guardrails. Anything over $500 we talk about as a family." The word family did so much work it should have drawn a paycheck. "And since you'll be staying long-term," she added with false brightness, "formalize room and board at $1,500 a month. Far less than Cedar Grove. My Social Security was $1,475. They knew that. They intended to put me on an allowance from my own prize while charging me rent for my own presence. I tasted copper and smiled anyway. "You've put a lot of thought into this," I said. The mask slipped by evening, in the muffled dark at 10:40 p.m. Tiffany's voice turned to steel. "She's going to fight us. Accidents happen to old lottery winners. Very easy targets." Kevin said her name like a warning and a plea. She didn't backtrack. "I'm protecting our family's future. That money could erase $47,000 of credit debt, fix the mortgage, fund the kids' college. Are we supposed to watch her waste it because we're polite?" In the silence that followed, I heard my own heartbeat and Daniel's recorder capture the sentence we had needed. I whispered to the dark, "Thank you," and set my coffee maker for 6 a.m., because sunrise would belong to the next move. At dinner the following evening, they came with the hard sell, dressed as concern. "You've been avoiding the joint account conversation," Kevin warned, and Tiffany added, "Your refusal to accept help is concerning. Elderly people who become paranoid about money are often declining." They slid a folder across the counter, emails to my doctor, notes about imagined memory lapses, photographs of pills I had never missorted, and used the word conservatorship like a life jacket while planning to throw me overboard. I let my hand hover above the folder and asked softly, "So if I say no, you'll declare me incompetent?" Tiffany didn't blink. "We'll declare you protected." I looked at their carefully arranged faces, at the room that had carried my quiet grief and their quiet arithmetic, and felt the last of my fear leave the house. "In that case," I said, and the coffee steam between us twisted like a signal flare, "it's time we all meet someone." Kevin's brow furrowed. "Meet someone," he repeated, but I was already turning toward the pantry door. The latch clicked, and Daniel Rodriguez stepped into the kitchen, his camera light winking like justice catching its first breath. For one beautiful moment. No one moved. Tiffany's mouth fell open, eyes darting between the stranger and the little black lens in his hand. Kevin's voice cracked. "Mom, what is this?" I set the folder gently on the counter. "This," I said, "is the truth you've both been rehearsing for 6 weeks, and Daniel here has recorded every performance." Tiffany blinked rapidly, her mask of composure fracturing. "You can't. This is illegal," she sputtered. Daniel's tone was calm, professional. "Colorado is a one-party consent state, ma'am. As long as one person knows the conversation is being recorded, that's perfectly legal." Kevin looked at me like the ground had been yanked out from under him. How long, he whispered. 6 weeks, I answered, "since the night I overheard you planning to ship me off to Cedar Grove." I walked to the counter and lifted the ceramic bowl, revealing the pinhole camera. Tiffany flinched like it might bite her. "This one caught your conversation about my supposed decline, and another caught your little talk about accidents." I paused, turning my gaze toward her. "That one's going to make an excellent exhibit for the prosecutors." The silence pressed on us like heavy snow. Kevin's shoulders sagged as Daniel raised his camera, recording their reactions in real time. "Financial elder abuse," Daniel said evenly. "Extortion, conspiracy, criminal threats, every charge supported by your own words." Tiffany's face drained of color. "We didn't mean it," she said, her voice trembling. "We were just stressed." Daniel didn't flinch. Stressed people don't threaten their relatives for money. Kevin sank into a chair, his voice low. "Mom, please, you don't understand. We're drowning. 47,000 in credit debt. 3 months behind on the mortgage. You decided the solution was to rob me. I finished for him. I was going to help you. Kevin, all you ever had to do was treat me with respect." Tiffany whipped toward him, tears cutting tracks down her foundation. "Don't you dare blame this on me," she snapped. "You were the one who said she owed us for 2 years of groceries. He barked back. You were the one who wanted the room for rental income. Their argument spiraled, ugly and honest, until they forgot the camera was still rolling. I let them unravel. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me simply watched, hollow and quiet, like a woman watching a fire that had already burned her house down. Finally, I said, "Do you want to know the worst part?" The Publishers Clearinghouse call was fake. Tiffany froze mid-sob. What a friend helped me stage it. I said, "I never won $25,000 or $1,000 a week." Their confusion was almost comical until I placed a bank statement on the table. What I did win, I said softly, was the Powerball lottery, $63.4 million after taxes. Kevin made a noise somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. Tiffany clutched the counter, her knuckles white. Why didn't you leave?" she stammered. "Because I wanted the truth on film," I said. "I wanted the world to see exactly how my family treated me when they thought I was poor." Daniel captured their faces' shock, disbelief, guilt, each frame sealing their fate. For a long time, no one spoke. Kevin's voice finally broke the silence. "Mom, please, don't ruin us." I met his eyes, seeing the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard, now buried beneath greed and regret. "You ruined yourselves," I said quietly. "I'm just documenting the evidence." The days that followed were chaos. Lawyers called, police arrived, news crews sniffed around the story before I ever said a word. Daniel interviewed Kevin and Tiffany separately for his documentary, giving them every chance to explain. Kevin tried to sound remorseful, said he'd been overwhelmed, manipulated by his wife, desperate. Tiffany tried to sound righteous, said she was protecting me, not threatening me. The footage said otherwise. When Detective Sarah Martinez from the Financial Crimes Unit asked if I wanted to press charges, I took a long breath and asked her, "If I don't, what message does that send to every other family treating their elderly parents like bank accounts?" She said nothing, just waited. I signed the paperwork. The pen barely shook. The indictment came 3 weeks later: conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse, false statements to obtain conservatorship, criminal threats. When the news aired, neighbors who used to wave at Kevin and Tiffany turned their backs. The car dealership let Kevin go. Tiffany's company placed her on unpaid leave. Their friends vanished. The only ones who reached out were the children. Tyler, sweet, confused Tyler, called one night after his shift at the grocery store. "Grandma," he said. "Why did you have to do this?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Because they were going to destroy me first." He was silent for a while, then said quietly, "Dad says you set them up." I sighed. "Tyler, if someone was planning to steal your college fund and have you declared incompetent, would you call that setting them up or defending yourself?" He didn't answer. But the next week, I found flowers on my doorstep with a note in his handwriting I understand now. The trial began in March under the soft, deceptive light of early spring, the kind that makes everything look cleaner than it truly is. I remember walking into the courthouse at 9 a.m., heart steady, palms dry. Daniel beside me carrying the hard drives that held every whispered betrayal. Reporters hovered like gulls, hungry for sound bites about greed and family. But this wasn't a story about money to me. It was about power, the quiet, cruel kind that hides behind words like care and protection. Kevin sat at the defense table, thinner than I'd ever seen him. His wedding ring was gone, the tan line around his finger still visible. Tiffany sat a few feet away, arms crossed, jaw tight, the picture of defiance dressed in remorse. They wouldn't even look at each other. The prosecutor, Robert Kim, was calm, deliberate. This case, he told the jury, isn't about a misunderstanding between family members. It's about two adults who saw an elderly woman as an obstacle and conspired to strip her of her freedom for financial gain. His voice never rose. It didn't need to. Truth carries its own volume. My testimony took 2 days. The courtroom was cold, the kind of cold that makes you aware of your pulse. I spoke softly, letting the recordings do most of the talking. The jury heard Tiffany's voice say, "Old lottery winners have accidents all the time," and the sound alone changed the air in the room. They heard Kevin say, "Mom doesn't have to agree," when discussing nursing homes. They heard their laughter afterward, the casual, practiced kind of cruelty that no one can fake once it's played back in public. "Mrs. Williams," the prosecutor asked gently, "what did you think when you heard your son and daughter-in-law talking about power of attorney?" I looked at Kevin then, my voice trembling just enough. I thought my family was planning to steal my life while calling it love. When it was Kevin's turn to testify, he couldn't meet my eyes. "We made mistakes," he said, voice small. "We were under pressure. I never meant to hurt her." His lawyer painted him as a desperate man, not a malicious one just overwhelmed by debt and a manipulative wife. Tiffany's lawyer painted her as a victim of her husband's poor judgment, but the recordings painted both of them exactly as they were two people who saw me not as a mother or a human being, but as a financial inconvenience. The jury deliberated for 6 hours over 2 long days. When they returned, no one breathed. The foreman's voice was flat. On the charge of conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse, we find the defendant, Kevin Williams, guilty. Kevin's shoulders caved in. On the same charge, the foreman continued, we find the defendant, Tiffany Williams, guilty. On the charge of criminal threats against an elderly person, we find the defendant, Tiffany Williams, guilty. Tiffany's face collapsed into her hands. Kevin stared at the table, unmoving, as though still waiting to wake up from a bad dream. I didn't cry. I just sat there with a strange stillness, the kind that comes after too many storms. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. Kevin got 14 months in federal prison, plus 3 years of probation. Tiffany got 18 months because of her threat. Both were ordered to complete 200 hours of community service at elder care facilities after release. The judge told them, "Perhaps serving the people you once sought to control will teach you what respect really means." When the bailiffs led them away, I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. Tired and relieved that it was over. The house felt too quiet afterward, like the walls were resting too. Daniel's documentary aired 6 months later under the title, The Grandmother Who Fought Back. It didn't sensationalize, it educated. It became a spark for something larger. I used a small part of my winnings to found the Dorothy Williams Foundation for Elder Justice. In our first year, we helped 89 seniors who'd been manipulated by family members or caretakers. We funded lawyers to challenge fraudulent conservatorships and provided safe housing for those escaping abuse. Every time I met another elderly person whispering, I thought I was alone, I told them, "You're not. You just need to start recording your truth." Tyler and Emma visit often now. Tyler's in college studying business, determined to never repeat his parents' mistakes. Emma volunteers at the foundation on weekends. Sometimes we cook together at my new house, a quiet 3-bedroom on the edge of Colorado Springs, with lemon trees in the yard and cameras only for security this time. Kevin wrote to me once from prison. He said, "I'm sorry. Mom, I hope someday you can forgive me." I replied, "Forgiveness is work. Kevin, if you want to earn it, the foundation needs volunteers." He never answered, but Tyler did. I've learned something in these final years. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by decency. Sometimes the people who share your name will destroy you for a check, and sometimes strangers will help you rebuild your life for nothing in return. If you've listened this far, thank you. If this story made you feel something anger, empathy, hope, share it. Someone you know might need to hear it. And if you ever find yourself in Dorothy Williams's shoes, remember you are never too old to fight back. Like, share. And subscribe for more stories that remind us what strength looks like when no one expects it. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Dorothy's place?